She dragged him into her bed, thinking he'd become her pawn, but when dawn broke, the power wasn't hers anymore. Please like and subscribe, and comment below where are you watching from. At the edge of a silent river below a tall cliff, a peaceful wooden house stood surrounded by spirit herbs. But that peace shattered when the protagonist was suddenly attacked. He had only just finished tending the herbs and was preparing for his training when a mysterious woman crashed into his life, literally. Her face was flushed, her energy wild, and her power far beyond his. Without warning, she dragged him upstairs and slammed him against a wall. Then she pressed a sword to his throat, drawing blood. The protagonist sensed she was either poisoned or under some strange influence. She was beautiful, but her violent intent was terrifying. When morning came, she had regained her senses but didn't lower her sword. Clearly, she remembered everything. She coldly questioned him about his identity and forced a strange pill into his mouth. Then, in a swirl of mist, she disappeared through the window. Still shaken, the protagonist touched his injured neck, realizing just how close to disaster he had been. Her power was overwhelming, and even though no real harm had come, he knew surviving in this harsh world required more than luck. He longed for peace, but knew danger had only just begun. At the highest peak of a powerful sect, a serene lake shimmered with blooming colors, its beauty untouched. In the middle of that calm lake, a graceful figure in red stood silently on a small island. Though her appearance was calm, a deep disgust flickered in her eyes. Just then, a woman dressed in white descended with quiet respect, bowing before the figure and addressing her as the sect master. This woman in red was no ordinary leader. She was the one who had turned a weak sect into the strongest force through decades of relentless struggle and strategic leadership. 30 years of intense battle had earned the sect its unmatched reputation. And after managing it for another 10 years, the sect master had entered secluded training, vanishing from sight for 60 years. But her return wasn't peaceful. She had been secretly attacked during her training, ambushed using a dangerous technique tied to another strong faction. What made the attack worse was the hidden poison used against her. If she had fought back directly, everything around her could have been destroyed. Forced to make a hard decision, she withdrew to a distant cliff, wounded but alive, setting the stage for the dangers that now quietly surrounded her. The protagonist, now an inner sect disciple, walks through the spirit herb garden, a vast area filled with various spirit herbs. At the center of the garden is the emotion-severing grass, a flower with powerful properties. It can be used to create 3 types of pills: the spirit-gathering pill, which helps absorb spiritual energy, the emotion-severing pill, which boosts success rates during important events, and the Elysium World pill, which can enhance cultivation rapidly or cause death if it fails. While walking, the protagonist observes energy bubbles floating around, each corresponding to different types of energy: strength, endurance, spirit, and even pills or treasure. These bubbles are absorbed into his body, helping him grow stronger. He realizes his strength surpasses that of others at his level, and his goal is to find a cultivation technique or ability to conceal his progress to avoid becoming a target. Later, he meets Fairy Yun Ruo from the Heavenly Joy Pavilion, a charming woman from a different sect. She congratulates him on his progress and hints at the possibility of him joining another sect. The protagonist is cautious, sensing that something is off, especially with her charm, but remains polite. The protagonist, having successfully reached the foundation establishment stage, spends his time managing the spirit herb garden, cultivating his lifeblood, and refining his strength. After completing his training for the day, he reflects on his progress and wonders about his next steps. Although his current cultivation method, the Heavenly Sound 100 Revolutions, has proven effective, he feels the need for a more powerful technique. Meanwhile, he learns from a system interface about his cultivation progress and gains a new ability fragment. Days pass, and the protagonist's relationship with senior sister Yun Ruo deepens as they meet often. However, a growing sense of unease lingers within him, especially as he discovers disturbing facts about her. She is part of the Heavenly Joy Pavilion, and despite his attempts to awaken feelings toward her, he feels strangely unaffected. His suspicions grow as he considers the effects of the pill she had given him. One day, he finds himself with a rare purple bubble which holds an ability fragment. This unexpected find brings him hope, knowing it might aid him in his journey. With new determination, he sets his sights on further advancements, preparing for the challenges that lie ahead. The next day, the protagonist followed his usual routine to the spirit herb garden and returned in the evening with little progress. Rumors were spreading about traitors within the sect, and while most had already been discovered, the protagonist was relieved he had nothing that could attract suspicion. The Heavenly Note sect, known as the Devil sect, was under scrutiny, and any involvement with traitors could lead to grave consequences. Back at home, The protagonist focused on tending to ordinary spirit herbs, contemplating how to grow stronger without attracting trouble. He was cautious about advancing his cultivation too quickly, knowing it could raise questions. Just as he was about to cultivate, senior sister Yoon Ruo arrived at his house, looking pale. She acted strangely, and the protagonist sensed danger. Inside, she confessed that she was a traitor, asking for his help to hide an item from the Sunset Immortal sect. Despite her pleading, the protagonist remained wary, unsure if this was a trap. The protagonist, Jiang Hao, finds himself in a life-threatening situation with senior sister Yoon Ruo, a member of the Heavenly Note sect who had been manipulating him. Using a special ability, he discovers her secret plan to frame him as a scapegoat for her actions. Realizing her true intentions, Jiang Hao plays along but cleverly turns the tables on her. He pretends to take the jade pendant she offers, but as she turns her attention away, he swiftly attacks, aiming for her life. Though initially hesitant, Jiang Hao's decisiveness shocks even Yoon Ruo, who had always seen him as a naive and harmless disciple. A battle ensues, and despite her resistance, Jiang Hao delivers the final blow, ending her life. He feels troubled by his actions, but knows he must survive in this brutal cultivation world. The protagonist then reports the incident to his master, the Cliff Master, explaining the situation, who assures him that the matter will be handled. 7 days had passed since the incident with senior sister Yoon Ruo, and the protagonist had spent the time anxiously, with no one coming after him. He had secretly tested his daily appraisal ability, discovering that it was much stronger than expected, but he had yet to find anyone of importance. When he appraised himself, he learned of the dangerous poison inside him, the Heaven Extinction Goo poison, which was forcing his body into a special state. The protagonist had no idea whether this was a blessing or a curse, but he knew the poison was tied to senior sister Yoon Ruo's actions. The consequences could have been much worse if not for the poison's protection. Deciding to focus on improving his strength, he went to the spirit garden only to be blocked by 3 young men who were clearly stronger than him. They were from the law enforcement hall, and their leader, a true disciple of the heavenly faction, questioned him about the death of Yoon Ruo. After confirming the situation, they imposed a harsh punishment. The protagonist had to pay 1,000 spirit stones as compensation to the Heavenly Joy Pavilion, a nearly impossible amount for him to gather in just 3 months. The protagonist was left worried about his future, unsure of how he would survive the harsh conditions set by the sect. The protagonist's name surfaces in a conversation about a suspect list, but none of the suspected individuals hold any significant status within the sect. Hong Yuya and Baiji examine Jiang Hao's case, who stands out as a potential traitor due to his connection with a former enemy, the Heavenly Joy Pavilion. Despite his seemingly gentle nature, his rapid cultivation and involvement in a recent killing raised suspicion. However, there's no solid evidence against him, making it difficult to draw any conclusions. Hong Yuya, ever calculating, suggests using Jiang Hao as bait to expose those hidden within the shadows, a plan that involves testing him without revealing the full scope of their intentions. A mysterious seed is given to Baiji, who is tasked with planting it in the hands of Jiang Hao. This seed, linked to the heavenly fragrance Dao flower, is believed to be crucial for uncovering hidden threats. Baiji, although hesitant, follows the sect master's orders despite her inner doubts. Meanwhile, the protagonist continues his daily routine, collecting bubbles from the spirit herb garden, pondering his financial situation. With only a fraction of the needed spirit stones, he considers taking up missions to earn more. The protagonist, now in the Foundation establishment stage, meets his old friend, Qi Yang, an inner sect disciple. Their reunion is brief, with Qi Yang amazed by how quickly the protagonist reached such a high cultivation level. The protagonist, however, feels the weight of his situation, especially his need to earn 1,000 spirit stones to avoid severe consequences with the Heavenly Joy Pavilion. He wonders about the pavilion's obsession with a traitor from within their sect, especially after hearing rumors about senior sister Yoon Ruo's connections with the pavilion. While talking with Qi Yang, the protagonist is introduced to Su Feng and Liang Yu, 2 other disciples. The conversation takes an awkward turn when Su Feng directly asks if the protagonist is the one responsible for Yoon Ruo's death. Uncomfortable, the protagonist admits his involvement. The reaction from Su Feng, Liang Yu, and Qi Yang is immediate, with them distancing themselves, recognizing that the Heavenly Joy Pavilion is not to be trifled with. The protagonist begins to understand the consequences of his actions and feels isolated. Later, Su Feng and Liang Yu discuss their thoughts on the protagonist, deciding that his rise through a fortuitous encounter means his future path will be fraught with challenges. As they pull away from him, The protagonist contemplates his next steps, deciding to earn spirit stones by learning talisman making despite his lack of experience. The protagonist, Jiang Hao, arrives at White Moon Lake, a place known for its dense spiritual essence that accelerates cultivation. The area produces many geniuses, but joining is not easy. Unlike the Cliff of Broken Hearts, where Jiang Hao originally trained, White Moon Lake is a prestigious and powerful sect. Upon arriving, Jiang Hao meets a fairy guard who directs him to take care of the pure young flower, a delicate task that requires care. He reassures the guard, stating his experience working in his former sect's herb guard. Led by senior sister Zhou, Jiang Hao learns about the responsibilities assigned to him. In the garden, he meets Elder Chen Su, a cold and disdainful woman who explains the task at hand. Jiang Hao must water a special lava-filled gourd every hour, which helps protect the valuable white spirit herb from the surrounding frost. Later, Jiang Hao reviews his cultivation status and realizes that his progress is quick. He is eager to advance further and plans to make talismans to raise the necessary spirit stones. Though he knows that creating basic talismans will not bring him enough, he decides to practice and make as many as possible. After a long night of effort, Jiang Hao creates 31 talismans, feeling accomplished despite the challenge ahead. The protagonist began following a strict daily routine after arriving at a quiet place near White Moon Lake. Guided by a senior, he was assigned to care for a rare and powerful flower. Each day, he poured lava onto the garden soil to nurture it, although progress was slow. The soil absorbed the lava gradually, softening the frost around it. Despite the effort, he didn't see quick results, but he remained consistent and dedicated. At night, he focused on crafting special papers used for practical purposes, and every morning, he tended herbs in another garden before returning to the lake. During this cycle, he often found energy bubbles, each adding small but steady improvements to his strength and growth. His lifeblood and energy increased every day, pushing him closer to his next goal. However, he knew he had to find a way to hide this progress from others. He carefully inspected the flower regularly, ensuring it remained healthy. Sometimes, the plant needed extra care, and he responded with caution, knowing mistakes could lead to blame. Meanwhile, crafting advanced paper seals became his side task, but it was slow and challenging. Though some were useful, they took too long to make and weren't very profitable. Even so, he pressed on, determined to grow stronger through hard work and patience. The protagonist quietly followed a senior to a peaceful lakeside, where the energy in the air felt thick and powerful. It was nothing like the place he had trained before. As they arrived at a quiet pavilion, a calm voice invited them inside. There, a graceful woman sat with quiet strength, her presence overwhelming. The protagonist respectfully greeted her while the elder explained the situation. The woman listened and then offered him a new task, one that sounded more like a hidden test than a reward. She smiled, but her words held weight, reminding him that failure wouldn't be without consequences. Despite completing 2 major tasks, the protagonist realized how things worked in this harsh world. Effort didn't always earn safety. As he left with a mysterious seed in hand, he was met by another senior who explained who the woman was, one of the top guardians and acting leader of their powerful group. It was shocking to learn he had stood before someone with such authority. He received more reward than expected, but what puzzled him was the true purpose of the seed. Why him? Why such a small task from someone so important? Deep down, he felt something wasn't right. He planned to study it when the time was right. The protagonist was stunned when he discovered the true identity of the seed he received, something incredibly rare and dangerous. According to what he learned, it came from a powerful flower born from the earliest forces of nature. This same flower had once appeared in the hands of a woman who was labeled a traitor. Realizing that people might be watching him for it, the protagonist became extremely cautious. Still, afraid of offending the elder who gave it to him, he quietly planted it in his small garden and watered it with care, hoping to remain unnoticed. He feared that the moment it began to grow, others might come after him. Determined to stay focused, he went to work in the spirit herb garden where he gathered special bubbles that boosted his strength, endurance, and spirit. Every small improvement reminded him that his daily efforts were paying off. Later, he visited the market and sold all his talismans to a stern senior woman. She demanded 50 more within 3 days. But even pushing himself all night wouldn't be enough to meet her request. Now he had another challenge ahead, trying to survive while meeting impossible demands without revealing the danger hidden in his garden. The protagonist noticed an unusual mark on his interface, a golden purple option without a clear name. Curious, he returned to his room and carefully checked his interface. Alongside his current progress, a new option labeled Purple Gold Legend appeared, ready to be claimed. Trusting his instinct, he activated it. Instantly, a wave of light surged through him, engraving an ancient technique deep in his mind. It was the Hongmeng Heart Sutra, a powerful method said to give rise to a rare form of energy called purple lifeblood. This technique offered the ability to conceal inner strength while increasing overall power. Eager to use this newfound knowledge, the protagonist returned to his duties at the Spirit Herb Garden. After tending to the heavenly fragrance Dao flower, he began cultivating with his new method. Despite his level staying the same, his strength rose remarkably. He felt confident that he could now easily handle challenges that once pushed him to the edge. The next morning, the fresh scent from the flower lifted his spirits even more. To his delight, two glowing bubbles appeared, one enhancing his strength and the other boosting his life force. These small gains reminded him that steady effort would lead him to even greater heights. The protagonist stood in silence, realizing that what he had heard earlier was true. But even if he had known before, there was nothing he could have done. Hesitation would have cost him everything. A senior approached him with unexpected news. The demand for compensation wasn't a punishment, but a shield. It was a way to stop someone from a dangerous faction from acting against him. Despite his doubts, the protagonist accepted this truth, knowing refusal wasn't an option in a place ruled by strength. The warning was clear. He was now a target of those obsessed with someone from a rival group, and his safety was hanging by a thread. The protagonist thanked the senior and watched him leave, but couldn't shake the feeling that something deeper was at play. He returned to his daily work, only to notice unfamiliar faces appearing in the herb garden. Their presence felt off. Soon, a woman began questioning him about rare plants. It became clear she wasn't just curious, she had a goal. Though he wasn't skilled in herbology, his focus on crafting special seals had paid off. With growing skill and steady income, he inched closer to clearing his dues. Yet the feeling of being watched never faded. The protagonist stood frozen when he saw the woman arrive, his calm heart suddenly pounding in his chest. She was the same woman he had once spent the night with, and her presence now stirred memories and emotions he had long buried. More importantly, her appearance confirmed something critical. She carried the cure to the silent poison threatening his life. Her beauty left a deep impression on him, but it was the danger she brought that truly unsettled him. Her gaze was sharp and cold as she spoke, revealing that she hadn't forgotten their last meeting. The protagonist respectfully addressed her, trying to mask his surprise and nervousness. But she was quick to uncover his hidden progress. She casually exposed his secret advancement, knowing he had reached a stronger level in a very short time. Her insight left him speechless and uneasy. He had tried to hide it, but she saw through everything. His breath, energy, and spirit had all given him away. Though she didn't press further, her interest shifted toward the rare flower he had been nurturing. When she asked about it, he admitted he simply watered it each day. She found it hard to believe something so delicate could thrive with such little care. Crouching beside it, she warned him that once it matured, she would take it. Before he could protest, a sudden burst of power swept him off his feet, reminding him of the gap between their strengths. The protagonist couldn't understand why his daily skill to analyze others had failed when he looked at the woman. It had never happened before, which made him curious and a little nervous. He wondered if it was because her strength was far beyond his, or if there was something else behind it. Still, he was relieved she didn't find out what he was trying to do. The woman saw through his attempt to hide his true strength and called him out. He explained honestly that he didn't want to attract unwanted attention, especially because of the rare flower in his courtyard. That flower had greatly helped his progress, but it could also invite danger. If others found out, especially those far stronger than him, he wouldn't stand a chance. Instead of punishing him, she placed a book on the table, warning him to take good care of the flower. Her stern presence made him shiver, and her sharp gaze alone was enough to freeze him in place. Before leaving, she warned him again to keep her secrets and threatened severe consequences if anything happened to the flower. Once she left, he finally felt at ease. Curious, he picked up the book. It turned out to be a handwritten manual filled with deep knowledge about energy control, breathing techniques, and understanding power. It wasn't just helpful, it was a true treasure. With it, he could completely hide his own strength and even sense the abilities of others. He realized the woman gave him this not out of kindness, but because she wanted the flower. Even though the flower was given to him by someone else, the woman's pressure made him hesitant about returning it now. Her strength was overwhelming, and defying her might bring serious trouble. The protagonist had spent nearly half a month studying a mysterious manual that helped him hide his true strength. Outwardly, everyone believed he was still at the early level, but in reality, he had already reached a higher stage. This gave him a great advantage, allowing him to train without drawing attention. He checked his progress through his internal system and noted how much effort it would take to continue advancing. If things went smoothly, he believed he could reach the next level in just a few months. But time was pressing. He needed to earn more spirit stones quickly before his deadline arrived. Now that he could completely mask his strength, he felt more confident, even wondering if he could fool the strong and mysterious woman who once visited him. Still, he remained cautious, knowing her power was nothing to take lightly. He then went to the spirit herb garden and collected energy from floating bubbles, gaining small boosts in strength and focus. Though he wished for intelligence boosts, he appreciated any improvement. Later, he went to the marketplace to sell talismans. While there, he saw an old friend but chose not to greet him, realizing it might bring danger. With 150 spirit stones still needed, he focused on selling what he had. The protagonist quietly handled his stall as a senior approached, smiling while picking up several talismans. He counted 4 fire-enhancing ones and 6 that helped with focus. After calculating the cost, the protagonist offered a small discount out of courtesy. But instead of paying, the senior acted surprised and claimed he didn't have enough spirit stones. With a smug tone, he suggested the protagonist follow him to a notorious place, but the protagonist politely declined, choosing to wait for payment the next day instead. Around them, others watched but didn't interfere, knowing this kind of bullying was common. Later that night, the same senior walked with another junior, proudly boasting about cheating the protagonist and earning 30 spirit stones. The younger disciple praised him, hoping to become strong like him one day. The senior, satisfied with the praise, handed him a spirit stone and shared a darker plan. He planned to return every day and bring others to forcefully drain the protagonist of everything he had, motivated by hidden resentment over someone the protagonist had unintentionally angered in the past. But before they could take another step, a sudden strike knocked the junior unconscious. The senior turned around only to be met with a dagger to his neck. Blood spilled as fear gripped him, and everything changed in a flash. The protagonist welcomed the man into his house and politely offered him tea. The atmosphere was calm, but the purpose of the visit was serious. When the man questioned him, the protagonist guessed it was about a previous conflict involving the pavilion and mentioned he was close to paying off what he owed. However, both knew the real reason was deeper. The man brought up someone from the pavilion who had recently taken talismans without full payment. The protagonist suspected he would never see that payment as the buyer kept making excuses and leading him on.